CD Projekt Red, the fine folks that made The Witcher, are of course working on another game. We all know this, they're making Cyberpunk 2077, and it does look very nice. But, did you know they could also be working on another Witcher game?
While 2015's The Witcher 3 might be the last game in series protagonist Geralt's story, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the last game in the series full stop. The Witcher 3 is one of the standout games of the generation in terms of reception and sales success. It catapulted developer CD Projekt Red into the forefront when it comes to YouTube comments and forum posts about favourite developers and companies that get it right, taking the series to over 33 million copies sold and picking up more than a few Game of the Year nods. Well, 3 years, 2 major expansions and collectible card spin-off later, the studio is now looking towards the release of its next game, Cyberpunk 2077. A big departure from The Witcher in both setting and gameplay, shifting the action to first person for its futuristic sci-fi open world. But that, apparently, isn't the only game the Polish devs are working on.
In an interview with Polish outlet Bankier, CD Projekt CEO Adam Kaczynski has hinted there's more to come from the world of The Witcher as well. Quote, "The first 3 Witchers were by definition a trilogy, so we simply could not name the next game The Witcher 4. This does not mean, of course, that we will leave the world of The Witcher created by us for over a dozen years. The Witcher is one of 2 franchises on which to build in the future activities of the company. Today, unfortunately, I cannot reveal anything more." Now, we know that CD Projekt is working on at least one other AAA game alongside Cyberpunk, but Kaczynski would not be drawn on what that other project might be. Quote, "For now, consciously, we want to focus on Cyberpunk 2077 in order not to dissipate our resources and attention of players." But he did say there will come a time to say more. So it does stand to reason that they make another The Witcher game. It'd be probably more weird if they didn't, to be honest. It's not going to be The Witcher 4, and it's not going to be based on Geralt. That's something that they've said. It's not going to be kind of Geralt's story. It's going to be something else. But it's a big universe. There's a lot of books to draw from on The Witcher, in The Witcher lore and stuff that they just haven't explored. And there's a lot there that they have not touched on, really. So it makes complete sense that they would be thinking about it, and if they would move into this model of having, like what Bethesda have got, I guess, where they've got like a Skyrim and a Fallout and an Elder Scrolls and a Fallout, coming like leapfrogging each other like that. I could see that being a healthy thing for them to do for a little while, for a few years.
Also in the news, it turns out Ellie, the player character in The Last of Us Part 2, will have an NPC companion in the upcoming sequel. 2013's The Last of Us saw players take control of protagonist Joel, with Ellie following and participating as an NPC companion for most of the experience. In the gameplay demo we saw at E3 2018, Ellie was completely alone. Well, developer Naughty Dog co-director and writer Neil Druckmann told BuzzFeed in an interview published this week how the idea of an NPC companion will in fact continue in the sequel. Quote, "Ellie used to be an NPC, but she's the protagonist in this story, so the player is controlling Ellie. It's safe to say with the game that we made in the past that there will be some NPC with you in this story, even though we're not showing the NPC in this demo."
We've got no idea who this NPC could be, and one of the fan theories that I've read, cover your ears if you don't want to hear it, I guess, although it is just a fan theory, is that it could be Joel, and that Joel is actually there with you, but it turns out he's dead. Which, if it is that, all storylines that end in "but they were dead all along" are bad. So hopefully it's not that.
I think Neil Druckmann's above that kind of story, I'll be honest.
While the ending of The Last of Us Part 1, based on the ending of that game alone, I will agree with you. Because that's a ballsy ending, one of my favourite all-time video game endings.
Yeah, they just don't want to let it go, do they? The theory that Joel is dead, that, all these trailer reaction videos from the original Last of Us trailer where, it's just Ellie, and Joel comes in as a shadow, it's a shadowy figure, and he walks in, he's not really seen, he must be dead, right? He's definitely dead. I think it's just time to give it up, and I think Neil Druckmann, he actually said himself during an interview at E3 that Joel is in the game. You'll obviously come back at me saying, well, he's there, but is he a ghost? We love Joel. I love Joel. Don't kill him. He's not dead. He's not dead, is he? He's not dead. Is he?
And one of PUBG's biggest streamers on Twitch has been banned after having some fun with someone who was obviously using hacks in the game during a live stream. Shroud isn't a cheater or a hacker himself per se, but he was punished by Twitch after what he did last weekend. During a match, Shroud encountered a cheater who was flying cars through the building he was in. The cheater, recognizing Shroud, offered to airdrop some items and supplies for him using the miraculous flying car that he had. Before you know it, Shroud, along with notorious stream sniper Wadu, was sitting in the flying car as well, getting ferried into the Battle Royale's next safe zone. The cheater then used a wall hack to spot a player hiding in a house, who Shroud promptly killed. Now, Shroud acknowledged live on stream that he would probably get banned, but pointed out that it was, quote, the most enjoyable game of PUBG I've had in a very long time. Holy f***, man, that was good. It really goes to show that PUBG don't give a shit, because that guy should have been banned immediately. Shroud was banned from the game for a month the very next day.
I watched the clip on YouTube. This is the most fun I've had watching or playing or any sort of fun out of PUBG in the last 3 or 4 months at the very least. And Shroud said he's had a lot of fun. The most fun he's had in the last 3 or 4 months. What's that say about the state of your game? What happened in his defense? He got killed on in 2 rounds by this hacker, this cheater. And the third one, he was like, oh shit, I might as well. If you can't beat him, join them. The fact that he wasn't killing him, the fact, it's against the terms of service itself that you're not trying to kill the enemy, that you're working with them, that in itself is worthy of a ban, regardless of being flown around like Harry Potter in a flying car and using the guy's wall hacks telling you where the enemy is. I don't know, I don't think anybody comes out of this looking good, but at least it was a funny story. Elsewhere in the news, it turns out 2016's Mafia 3 originally had an opening sequence so controversial, the developers wiped away all trace of its existence. Talking to the Develop Conference in Brighton this week, as reported by Eurogamer, Hangar 13 executive producer Andrew Wilson explained what happened. Mafia 3 originally had a more dramatic cold opening than the docu-style montage that's actually in the game. Quote, that whole cold open has been burned from our servers. It literally does not exist, because if it ever had come out without any context in any form, it would have looked terrible. Because disconnected from the game, it's obviously even more shocking. Game director Hayden Blackman explained that the cold open was added at the 11th hour and showed protagonist Lincoln Clay and a couple of friends being ambushed by the mob with some super violence. The idea was that it explained why Lincoln left to fight in Vietnam, but it was ultimately cut because it felt exploitative more than anything else.
It's always really interesting to hear about cut content in video games and why things were removed, and sometimes it's just to streamline things, and editing is just part of creation. Like in movies and TV, you got to cut some stuff out. The fact that it was so bad that they had to consciously just wipe it from their servers and get rid of all trace of it just in case it leaks. They didn't really go into detail about what it was, other than the fact it was very violent and they didn't like the tone of it, and also the fact that it was tacked on near the end of development. So they had the game as like almost near completion, and then they added this hugely, in their view, controversial thing to the beginning of it, and they just didn't like it, and it was cut, and we'll never know what it was or what it looked like. And I guess by the sounds of it, that's a good thing. And finally, prominent voice actor Roger Craig Smith had some perhaps surprising things to say about doing voice work for video games this week. Smith has done all kinds of voice actor work for games, TV and movies. His video game credits including Ezio in Assassin's Creed, Batman in Arkham Origins, and Chris Redfield in the Resident Evil series. Speaking to the Putting in Work podcast, Smith said he is actually pulling back from video game voiceover work now. Quote, they're starting to take a long time and be very taxing on the voice. I've had to say no to certain types of roles or time commitments. I'm going to go in and be unable to work for 2 days, and for what? To be part of a popular game? If the goal is run a career and gain income, we're shooting ourselves in the foot and taking a bunch of steps backwards by not being able to go out and work in the name of doing this one particular role. Now this of course isn't the first time a voice actor has shared their grievances about the games industry. It was only last year actually when an 11-month-long voice actor strike wound down with the help of Hollywood's biggest acting union, the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of TV and Radio Artists. That dispute related mainly to residual payments and bonuses for actors, and the huge strain placed on performers' vocal cords with repeated recordings of battle cries, grunts, death scenes, and other common video game noises. This is like a long-running thing, like like all them little noises that like Nathan Drake makes when he's just running, jumping, shooting, reloading, doing some more running, doing some climbing. All of those noises have got so many different variants, and they have different takes because they want to try whichever one is the best version of that particular grunt or whatever for that kind of animation. They just sit there, just kind of grunting in a box all day, and then considering their whole job is using their vocal cords and their voices, it kind of burns them out, so then they can't work for a little bit, and they spend so long doing this stuff, not like acting, not like, well, it is acting, but not reading out lines and doing dialogue, just making noises, that they can't do anything else. So that's a gaming news roundup for you to end your week. Let us know what your favourite story was down in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. There should be another one right there if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.